Neither one of them is going to be easy, but which path is the best one for the Cardinals to get into the playoffs this season? This is Locked On Cardinals.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily St. Louis Cardinals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Cardinals fans. I'm JD Haffern, and I'm a national radio sports anchor, born and raised in the Lou, and a lifetime Cardinals fan, and I'm your host for Locked On Cardinals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. You can follow me on Twitter, X, at JD Sports Radio, as well as the podcast at LO_Cardinals. I do want to thank those of you who make Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube if you want to see our faces and get a visual version of this show. Be sure to stop on by and check that out, because this is a show serving Cardinal Nation and giving the best fans in baseball all of the info about the birds on the bat. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. All right, we've got a guest today, my man and yours, Thomas Gauvain from RedbirdRants.com, in with us today to talk a little Cardinal baseball. Thomas, how are things with you? Getting ready for school, I hear, right?
Yeah, we go back in about a week and a half, so my mind's trying to get used to that idea.
Do you still get nervous? You know how, like, students, when we were kids, we got nervous before school started. Do you get nervous as a teacher, too?
A little bit. It's my 7th year at this point, so I'm kind of used to it. I know what to expect, but yeah, it's always a little bit anxious.
Do you come out, like, snapping rulers and stuff? Like, all right, here we go. This is how it's going to be, just to scare the kids, and then, like, all right, I'm kidding. I'm really a nice guy.
I think the trick is to always start a little bit harder and then loosen up as you go. It's a little bit easier.
All right. See, we get a little insight here on what it takes to be a teacher. Let's talk about some Cardinal baseball, buddy. Thursday night, Cardinals lose this one 6-4 against the Tampa Bay Rays, which was a tough loss, considering that it felt like the whole game, outside of the top of the first inning, it felt like they had this one in the bag, that the sweep was inevitable, and then it goes away with an ugly 7th inning. Kyle Leahy did not pitch well, and then JoJo gives up the dinger on the first pitch that he throws, and Cardinals offense goes quiet again. You know, they start off kind of hot. It's almost like they're inspired early on, because they tend to be in a hole. For whatever reason, our starting pitching gives up a couple of runs early on. They come back, and then they just get real stagnant, and they don't do much the rest of the way. So what were your thoughts on last night's loss? How'd you feel about it?
It was tough to see. I mean, we had the defense from Nato and Wynn. You saw Goldie and Arenado getting hits, which we haven't been seeing lately. But then have the bullpen lose it the way they did late in the game, and then us not come back out of that hole again once more. It was tough to watch.
Yeah, and considering that the bullpen's been such a strength all year, and, you know, when it does falter, it's almost like, oh my gosh, these guys suck. And you're like, well, I mean, they've been used a lot, guys. So, and it happens, and that's part of the 162 game season. So it's not like, you know, I got so many Kyle Leahy's trash things last night where I'm just like, he's the last dude in the bullpen. Like, you just can't throw the same guys every single night. And when you're only getting 6 innings from starters, sometimes, like, it's going to happen. You're going to end up throwing these guys, and inevitably they're going to get beat by teams that are good. And the Tampa Bay Rays, although they traded a bunch of dudes away, they're still a pretty decent squad. Like, it's not like they're just trash. So, but yeah, it was a tough one to watch last night, which brings us to our first thing here. It's about getting to the playoffs. And there's been a big debate online about which path is really the best path for the Cardinals to not only get into the playoffs, but if you do get in, to succeed in there, which is something the Cardinals haven't done in a long time. When they have made it to the postseason, they don't go very far. So losing games like last night is not going to help your cause getting into the playoffs, considering the schedule that is coming up here in the rest of August, because it is quite tough. But you've got two options. You've got the go win the NL Central, which means you got to catch the Milwaukee Brewers, or you can win the wild card spot. Now, the Brewers, for some reason or another, won't lose. And when they do lose, it just happens to be on the same night that the Cardinals lose. They just destroyed what's left of the Atlanta Braves in a 3-game series. Just hit the crap out of the ball and end up taking that. And the Cardinals are now 7 games back of Milwaukee in the NL Central. So that's a lot considering how much time is left in the season. And then we flip over to the wild card spot, and your top 3 spots are the Phillies, the Dodgers, and the Brewers in their division. And then you've got the Padres, who have won 5 straight and 8 of their last 10. The Diamondbacks finally lost yesterday, but also winners of 8 of their last 10. The Mets have now taken over the Braves in that 3rd spot. And then you've got the Braves, and then you've got the Cardinals, who are now 2.5 games back of a wild card spot. So in your opinion, Thomas, which way do you think is the best way for the Cardinals to get in?
I would love the division. You get the home field advantage for the first series locked up. You don't have to worry about who's going to be around you from the wild card, whether you finish 4th or whatnot. So you've got to lock up the division to get that home field advantage. We have 6 more games against the Brewers. They are currently destroying us in the season series. We have 1 win out of the 7 games.
Yeah.
So we'd have to sweep all 6 to A, give us a chance for the division, and B, give us the tiebreaker against them. We have the Padres 4 more times, Giants 3 more times, who are right behind us. I would love the division, but given the 3 wild cards, that may be the easiest route, just with more options.
And the thing is, the Brewers got to slow down. And I just, it's incredible. Like I was talking to Chuck, who does Locked On Brewers. We stay in touch a lot because I'm also, a cheesehead for the Packers. So talking about sports in Wisconsin, like we like to chat. But he's as amazed as anybody about it. He's like, I tell you what, he's like, I did not see this coming, that it would be a team that would just be this consistent, considering all of the changes that they had with, losing Craig Counsell as manager, losing their top 2 pitchers, trading away Corbin Burns and losing Woodruff and getting better is not something that I thought was going to be happening. Losing Devin Williams for pretty much the whole season. He's just starting to, get going in games. So it's been amazing how that they've been able to stay the course and can continue to be not only the top team in the NL Central, but one of the top teams in the National League. And I still don't think people give them the credit that they deserve, because when you talk about the teams that are remaining and will go to the playoffs, and it's obviously they're probably going to be one of them, that nobody really gives them a shot in the playoffs against any of these other teams that we brought up. So kind of funny that way. As far as the wild card spot goes, and we're 2.5 back out of it. So obviously it's a shorter distance to get in there. But what are some of the negatives about being the wild card team, if that's indeed the way they have to get in this year?
Obviously, you have a chance of losing home field advantage, which it didn't do us too well 2 years ago. So I don't know if that's even something we want. But it's just murkier, honestly, when you land in the wild card. You don't know who you're going to face as more of a sure thing. You're duking it out with 3 or 4 other teams below you. I mean, even the Giants and the Pirates are within 5 games of a wild card spot. So there's a lot of mess that you'd have to play around with and worry about. It's just the division's much more sure shot when you get into the playoffs.
And a lot of these teams that we're talking about, because, the Cardinals made improvements with, getting Fetty and Pham and Armstrong. But some of these other teams went crazy at the trade deadline and made dozens of moves, it seems like.
Well,
so
the Diamondbacks are getting healthy, too. I mean, they just got Eduardo Rodriguez back. Montgomery could be turning it around. Corbin Carroll could always go off at any point. I know he's had a bad year, but he's scary.
He's definitely warming up, because he was one of my first picks in fantasy. So he's been on that, man. I was like, do I cut this guy? This guy sucks this year. What happened? And then slowly but surely, he's starting to come to life, just like the Diamondbacks are, who now are 63 wins on the season, like out of nowhere. You're like, what? Where did this come from? And they've just been on a tear recently. The Padres have gotten super hot, and they made all those different moves. Their bullpen is disgusting now with the additions that they made. So either way, none of them sound great, to be honest with you. Maybe we just pack it up and call it a season. It doesn't sound like they're going to go very far if they do make it to the playoffs. Obviously, we're kidding. We want to see them get in, but it is not going to be easy. And as I mentioned, losing to teams like the Rays, who have, punted on the season, to lose that game on Thursday night obviously doesn't make things any easier. It also doesn't bring a lot of faith into your fan base when stuff like this happens. When you see teams that are, we're on the verge of making a playoff spot, and then they go out and make all these other moves, and then the Cardinals kind of do the Cardinal thing, and they get the safe moves, and it's not something that inspires a lot of fans. And if you've noticed, and I'm sure you have, the attendance at Busch Stadium has not been great either. So how do we re-excite the fan base and get things going again at Busch Stadium, make it fun again? Thomas has got some ideas on that. So we're going to jump into that next with him on Locked On Cardinals. Going to baseball games in St. Louis, absolute tradition. You and the family, you want to make the trip to Ballpark Village. You want to grab a pregame meal and then head on over to Busch Stadium to cheer on the Cardinals, although there hasn't been as many of you, as I just mentioned, that have been going to the games. But for the faithful, you're down there a lot, and when it comes to getting tickets to a game, I'm telling you, if you want the best deals, you got to go to the Game Time app. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster. It makes it easier, which is something we can all agree on. Prices on the Game Time app, they actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. They got those killer last-minute deals. You're also going to get the all-in prices. You get the views from your seat, which is great, so you know exactly what you're going to be looking at. And their lowest price guarantee, because Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. They make it as simple as possible for you. Again, you can save up to 60% off on last-minute deals for not only sporting events, but you've also got concerts and comedy and theater and other interests. So check them out for yourself. And when you do purchase there, know this. The lowest price guarantee or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB. That's LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day and have to turn down the volume with all the shouting? Then make the switch to Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all of that screaming. You get the analysis, the opinions, the news, and it's 24/7. Streaming there on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Thomas Gauvain from RedbirdRants.com joining us here today to talk a little Cardinal baseball. And the fans are a big reason why this franchise has thrived. Obviously, the product on the field, when they're good, more fans are going to come out, and it's going to be a whole lot more fun for everybody involved. But the Cardinal Nation is monstrous. You get the packed houses at games. Anytime you hear, like we had that the World Series team that just came back, what was that, 04, just came back, and they were talking about one of the things that made that team even more special than who the guys were was the fact that, you're playing in front of 45,000 people every single night, packed house, and the energy that they would receive from that. I remember the interview with Ray Langford specifically talking about it. You got merchandise galore across the Midwest and just, across the United States. Anytime you see an away game, you see a lot of Cardinal red out in the crowd, man. It's a Cardinal Nation's huge. But after the injection of fun that they had in 2022, remember we get Albert back. He goes on the run to go to 700. It's Yachty's last season. We didn't know what was going on with Waino there, but it was a lot of fun. They win the division. They go to the playoffs, and then, the Phillies knock them out. Since then, though, the fans haven't been quite as excited about things going on at Busch Stadium and the product on the field and what's been going on in the front office and who the manager is and who the coaches are. I mean, there's been a lot of turmoil going on with this team, and you're seeing it in the attendance. The other night, it was something where it was like one of the lowest crowds in a non-COVID season that they've had in a really long time. How do we re-excite the fan base and get these butts back in the seats and get the energy back at Busch Stadium? You recently wrote about this, Thomas. So what were some of the ideas that you had to get them all back and get them back on the train?
Yeah, all this started. Derek Gould had in his chat earlier this week. Some people were talking about what's going to excite the fan base, and so I decided to dig a little bit deeper. I think I came up with about 5 or 6 ways. The most obvious answer has to be winning. I mean, you look at our annual attendance for the last 15 years or so. You go back to 2004, they lost in the World Series, and then there's a huge spike the next 2 years in attendance. Then they won the World Series in '06, and the attendance continues. So winning seems to be the key ingredient here. We had a winning season in 2022, 93 wins, but there's also the Albert Pujols, Yadier Molina, Adam Wainwright factor. So then I also brought in the legacy player idea. That brought me down a rabbit hole to bringing back Paul Goldschmidt, which may not
Oh boy, here we
right.
go.
Yep,
All
that
right,
may
see,
not be
you
what
can't
fans want.
you can't just drop that bomb and then
I
not
know.
talk about it, Thomas. Where are you when it comes to the Paul Goldschmidt coming back next year? Because I kind of talked about this too, where in my opinion, I'm like, if he's cool with a very lower salary and is cool with not playing every day, then I'm okay with that. But at the same time, if you're Paul Goldschmidt, how does that make sense for you?
Right.
Where you know you can probably get a starting job somewhere else and still probably make $20 million if you want to. Why would he want to do that with the Cardinals? So that's kind of the road I was on. Where are you with it?
Yeah, it's the same. It depends on the role and the price. If he's like 2 years, 30 million, and he's okay getting 400, 350 at bats a year, sure, go for it. But if he wants more money and time, probably not. That's the best.
All right. So Paul Goldschmidt, legacy, bringing him back. I feel like he doesn't have quite the pull as the Yachty and the Albert,
No.
but all right, let's continue.
Big signings was another thing I talked about. Gould brought this up in his chat. I mean, you think about in the last 5 years, we've added 2 perennial MVP candidates and Goldschmidt and Arenado. We added last year's AL runner-up in Cy Young, and they haven't seemed to move the needle too much either. So honestly, I think it just comes down to winning. There were a couple of fans in Gould's chat who talked about replacing the Mozeliak and other people in the front office, ownership, coaching staff. Gould said, "How many general manager jersey giveaways do you see?" So I don't know. I think there's a small segment of fans that would be coming back if Mozeliak or Marmol or even the DeWitts shift a little bit, but I don't know if that's the move. To me, it'd be big winning seasons, 100 wins, deep postseason runs, those types of things that would bring fans back.
Yeah, obviously winning is always going to be top priority. The Cardinals just don't do business that way, and it's I think that's part of it. Is it's the way they go about things. It's just they go about it as a business. It's not like we're like the Padres and the Mets, where it looks like it's like their ownership's like a kid with a toy, and they're just like, ooh, I can add this and go crazy. Well, how many rings do they got?
Yeah.
It hasn't worked out, and it doesn't work out all the time for people who just go out and spend a gazillion dollars. Like it fails a lot more times than it actually works. I mean, the Dodgers, what do the Dodgers have to show for all their money that they have been shelling out over the years? They got a COVID World Series and then Kirk Gibson, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't always work that way. So it's at the same time. And then when they do, the other side of it too is like when they do spend money, they just spend it on some bad guys. So, there's been bad choices. I'm not talking about Gray or Goldie or Arenado. Those were obviously good ones, but some of the other pieces that they bring in, the Dexter Fowlers and stuff like that, where, you're just kind of like, even at the time of the signing, you're like, that's not an exciting choice. And second off, like, isn't he on the wrong side of his career? Like, I don't know anybody who thought the Dexter Fowler thing was going to work out the way that they thought it was going to. So just some odd choices with things like that. I don't need them to spend $300 million. I just need them to spend it right. Like when you're spending $17.6 million on a Miles Mikolas, that's not a great investment.
No.
That's bad. And that's where I think their problems are. Like, they just have to spend it better. Like the Eric Fetty, 7 point, that's good. that's going to be a good price for him. But it's not as easy as that with the way these salaries are escalating and whatnot. And then when you go and you look at, what it's going to take to bring in free agents, like, what about St. Louis is sexy anymore? Is the shine of all of the years that they have won. That's why I felt like, getting Sonny Gray, it seemed like kind of an easy pickings there, is because he's at an age where he appreciates that stuff still, where if a 25, 26-year-old free agent and you aren't going to pay him top dollar, what are the other reasons to come to St. Louis? Like, what is it about the Cardinals that excites those types of players in that age group? And I don't know if there is anything, to be honest with you.
Are you saying that Juan Soto doesn't prefer the Gateway Arch over everything in New York City?
I'm going to go out on a limb and say no. I'm going to go out. I don't think that's going to happen. And, some of these guys just love the bright lights of those bigger cities. And then there's the guys and that's why, like, when I talk about, like, Paul Goldschmidt, I'm like, there's just no emotion sometimes. He's just such a robot or whatever. But those are the kind of people that live in the Midwest and like St. Louis, and so that's why those kind of players are attracted to this franchise and makes sense for them. It's really about bringing up youth, in my opinion. If you really want to start getting really, really good and have exciting play, you have to build guys from within, and then you're going to have to sign them before they get away from you, which I think is something you touched upon in your write-up as well, where leaning on guys like, look at the energy that Mason Wynn brings to this team. Yep. And hopefully at some point, a guy we're going to talk about here in a minute, Jordan Walker, is another one of those guys, these top prospects. And we keep seeing guys like Dylan Carlson doesn't work out. Tyler O'Neill, what exciting on the field, couldn't stay healthy, but, doing good things in Boston now. The attitude that a guy like a Randy Arozarena brought to the Rays for those few years, that was stuff that was missing with the Cardinals. Lars Nootbaar has big energy, but he's not producing like we thought he would. So, these guys got to pan out, and those got to be the way that, you're not going to probably pull those big stars from the free agency pool, but if you grow them and they become your new, Alberts and Yachty's, guys that came from within and you built them up and they became superstars in your organization. I think that's the best way to get these guys energized again. And obviously you have to win the ball games when they do come up. But I want to talk about a couple of guys who that perhaps could help this team here in the very near future, because, they've been looking for right-handed bats. That was something that bringing Tommy Pham back was the reason why. And, obviously that's worked out nicely. He's been very, very good so far. But a couple of guys that are down in the minors might also be coming up to the team here real soon. We'll get to those next on Locked On Cardinals. Order supplies from the website that's made for the skilled trades. Find thousands of parts from hundreds of brands in just a couple of clicks at SupplyHouse.com. Now, SupplyHouse.com gives you 24/7 access to a huge selection of plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies, and they give you the fast delivery anywhere in the United States. Doesn't matter where you are. And if you need help with an order, one of my favorite things about SupplyHouse is that you actually get to talk to a real person. You get industry-leading after-sales service from their friendly and knowledgeable customer support team, and it's a real person every time. And we've got great news for you that are plumbers or technicians and contractors. There's a lot of you out there. Being a pro has got its perks with SupplyHouse. Trade industry professionals can join their free Trade Master program for free shipping and serious discounts on every order. You can get over 100,000 pros already in the grouping, right? They already trust the Trade Master program to deliver results, and you can apply for your membership today and be a part of that and get the competitive edge on every order at supplyhouse.com/TM. That's supplyhouse.com/TM. Save money, save time when you order online. Order the plumbing, the HVAC, and electrical supplies you need from supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen today. For your second listen, enjoy the Locked On MLB podcast with Sully, who provides a national expertise on all of the teams. He talks about all of them, and he injects that trademark humor that has made Sully so popular, getting you ready for the MLB playoffs here in the dog days of summer. He's got it all covered every single day on Locked On MLB, available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Again, Thomas Gauvain from RedbirdRants.com joining us here. Coming up in September, there's the additional spots. It's not like it used to be a few years ago where you could call up 75 people and then you had this football roster available to come out and do whatever you needed. You were allowed to add, what is it, two more people for the September call-ups. The Cardinals bench at this moment, because they're fairly healthy, when outside of, Michael Ciani getting hurt, most of the guys are doing all right. And things are tight because they're not going to cut, from everything I'm told, from people who know, there's no way they're DFAing Brandon Crawford. So everybody can stop talking about that. Okay. Apparently they love him. The guys in the clubhouse love him. They love his role with the team. So get over it. He's not going anywhere. So where do we find spots for right-handed bats to help this team out when facing left-handed pitching? Because we threw out the stats the other day. They are second to last in pretty much every category against left-handed pitching this year, ahead of only the White Sox, and it's usually them or the Marlins. One of those two are the only ones that are worse. And the Cardinals could use some help, and Tommy Pham has provided that. But now with Ciani going down, and because Pham has been so good, he's not on the bench. He's not there, so it's still all left-handers out on the bench again. So we get to that pickle where we don't have anybody who can come off the bench and hit a left-hander later in the game. So there's a couple of guys that you brought up in your blog that you wrote about actually this morning. You brought up Jordan Walker. You also brought up Luken Baker. And a third guy, which we'll put the blog and we'll put the link in the notes and stuff. You guys can go check it out for yourself. But let's start with Jordan Walker, who, last year had this fantastic second half. Everybody thought, all right, here he goes. Here's our future star. And then it didn't work on earlier in this year. Things were bad. And then he continued to struggle at Memphis. But recently, things have gotten better, haven't they, Thomas?
They have. First, I'm going to say Ivan Herrera is not on this list because his OPS against lefties is 643, which does not help our case.
All right, so no Herrera, so
right.
It's another guy.
But Jordan Walker has been great. Just in August alone, prior to August 8th, I think, he had a 391, 440, 652 slash line, 9 hits with 3 doubles and a home run. So he's doing what the organization wanted him to do. He's hitting the ball hard, and he's lifting it in the air. That's exactly why they sent him down. So I think that he would be a great addition via the 27th, 28th men once September rolls around. Everybody likes Jordan Walker, I think, as a person. Some people are starting to get prospect fatigue with him, which I don't understand because he's only 22.
Right.
Give the guy a break. I think
there's no patience in this world anymore, Thomas. And I know that is the forbidden word because Mozeliak has buried that word so many times into our brains, but at the same time, it's part of what baseball is. It's 162 games. It's it's long years, and it takes time for these kids to develop. And Jordan Walker is not some college kid who just came up and is ready to rock and roll. He's not JJ Weatherholt. He was a kid coming out of Georgia and had to learn a new position and all this stuff. And the fact that people are like, oh, he's a bust already. Like, it just infuriates me that they're like that already.
Yeah. I think his promotion's a pretty easy transition, especially if he comes up before September. Nolan Gorman could probably use a rest down in AAA. He's striking out almost 40% of the time.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so you bring up Walker, you send down Gorman, Donovan gets to move back to second base, and then the outfield gets opened up with 4 guys still.
Yeah, watching Gorman last night, there was an at-bat where, he just swung with his arms. I don't know what's going on. There's another guy when talking about prospects that seem to be regressing. And even though he's got 20 home runs and 60 RBIs, he just cannot put the bat on the ball enough. And it's weird. And the first thing I think of when I see that stuff, and I'm like, are his eyes okay? Does he need contacts?
Tommy Pham of 2018 all over again.
Yeah, I was like, because it just blows me away that we're the skill sets are there. He's got quick hands, he's got the power, he's got the build, he looks fine defensively. I just don't get it. It's bizarre to me how, and it's almost like he's in his own head, and it feels like it's all mental stuff with these guys. I said the same thing about Dylan Carlson for years. It just looks like he's so hard on himself. and he just has no confidence up there. And that's a big part of hitting a baseball, is being confident that you can go out and hit those guys. And when you don't, that pitcher's already won half the battle there mentally against you. So, Jordan Walker makes a lot of sense. And, if you're going to be facing lefties, I mean, and people are like, something that I brought up is one of the reasons why he hasn't been pulled up ever is not only have the stats not been there, but you want him to play every day. But, if the Memphis season has winded down, and why not? Because you're in a playoff push. You're not there to win AAA championships. We're here to win World Series championships at the major league level. And if Jordan Walker can help you in that final month, then by God, bring him up and do that. All right, let's move on to the next one. And now this has been kind of a hot topic too. Luken Baker. Luken Baker just popped his 30th home run the other day. We know that he had this monster season at Memphis where he was, triple crown type of stuff. Comes up to the Cardinals when they stink, and he gets 100 at bats. Doesn't look great in a lot of them, but he walks a lot. Some of the barrel percentages, that stuff's kind of good. If you go to his Baseball Savant page, like, there's a decent amount of red on there. There's also a decent amount of blue because he struck out a hell of a lot. But the walks and his exit velocity, stuff like that was all there. But after 100 at bats, it seems like the Cardinals were like, meh, and have moved on from him, because you don't really hear a lot of people talking about him. And when I brought this up on Twitter, most fans were saying he's a 4A player, which is the joke where he's not a major league player, but he's better than a AAA player. So what do you do with him? I think he's 27 years old now. But once again, this is a guy that, 30 home runs is 30 home runs. He's got pop. You don't have to play him every day. What is the reasoning behind not giving Luken Baker another shot? What do you think that is?
I talked about this in the write-up. I think part of the issue is, Paul Goldschmidt's at first base, and it's tough to dethrone a potential future Hall of Famer. But then you also have Alec Burleson, who could play first base just as often as Goldie or Luken Baker. So to have 3 first basemen on your roster feels a little bit like a waste. I think you can honestly throw Matt Carpenter there too. So now you throw in a 4th guy who could play first base. And the Cardinals are a team that loves their utility. So Jose Fermin would probably be going up before Luken Baker would. And Fermin's actually having a good year. But it seems as though Luken Baker's just being blocked, despite being 27 years old and performing very well these last 2 years at Memphis.
Yeah, I have these, visions of like a Luken Baker, like, how like Brent Rooker or the A's, which obviously he plays outfield and can play both corners. So he's a little more versatile than what Luken Baker can do for you as far as something outside of a DH or first base. But, there's these guys like Brent Rooker who didn't do much. And then all of a sudden at age, 28, he just kind of, something clicks, figures some things out, and he's able to go on to have a pretty solid career. Was one of the more sought after guys at the deadline. A's said, we're going to keep him, take him to our AAA ballpark in Sacramento for the next couple of years. But for whatever reason, that's obviously another joke that's going around, is that, well, as soon as Luken Baker leaves, somebody will pick him up. He'll be their DH and mash and be amazing for everybody else. People brought up bat speed, at the major league level. And I continue to say, like, he had 100 at bats. Okay. So if you're going to go off 100 at bats and say this guy sucks, then that means Mason Wynn shouldn't be a ball player anymore. Because remember last year, he was not very good, right? He was adjusting to the major leagues and did not hit very well. And you see what you're getting this year. And there were people that were like, yep, he's a bust. You're out of here. Nolan Gorman, I'm not ready to give up on yet. But, obviously when he first came up, you're seeing he did a lot what he's doing right now, where he was just striking out, but he got better after you gave him more at bats. Jordan Walker didn't, do all that much when he first came up, had the hits, but it wasn't like he was doing a lot. And then the next round, when he came back up, he was much better. I wonder if that's something that maybe the Cardinals will look at as just a bench bat, just somebody off the bench, because if you're going to be putting Tommy Pham in your starting lineup more times than not, because he's hitting so well, then you still need a right-handed bat off the bench. So when they expand the rosters a little bit, I wonder if Baker will get that chance just to be a bat, like not play first. Obviously the DH role is clogged with Contreras, because they want to get Pages in the game as much as they can as a catcher. Obviously Burley's not the best outfielder. He's not the most athletic guy out there. So they like him in the DH role, getting guys off their feet like Nato and getting a Goldschmidt off for a day or two. There's plenty of guys who can DH on this team. So that's not a situation where there's just a big empty spot there. But just for that thump off the bench, I wonder if that's something they'll think about when those rosters expand. So we're going to get you links to all of Thomas's writings for redwoodrans.com. We're going to put those in the show notes and in the comment section down below. So make sure you guys click on those, check them out, because he does have a third guy that he talks about in that blog where that is a guy that I've brought up as well. Could be an interesting bat to bring up, who offers a little more versatility than one Luken Baker. So you'll have to go check that out for yourself. Thomas, as always, appreciate you jumping in and chatting here today. By the way, everybody, Thomas, who lives in Kansas City, will be at the Royals games this weekend. Yes?
Absolutely. I got tickets to both of them.
Okay. Do you know where you're sitting and stuff already?
I think tonight I think they're both in the 400s because I can't afford anything better than that. I think tonight I'm behind home plate. I don't know about tomorrow night.
That didn't used to be a problem in Kansas City. It used to
know.
be where you could just go wherever you wanted because they were stinky. But now you got Bobby Witt Jr. and the boys playing some good ball. And the Royals are tough, man. Those are one of those teams that maybe doesn't get enough credit in the American League that I think might surprise some people in the playoffs if they make it in. So interesting stuff. All right, well, enjoy the games. Have fun with the family, brother. And we'll talk to you real soon.
All right. Take care, JD.
All right. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. If you haven't already, give us a follow on Twitter, X at @LO_Cardinals and at JD Sports Radio. Like, subscribe on YouTube. Help our channel and our love for the Cardinals grow. You guys are the best fans in baseball for a reason, and we'll see you next time on Locked On Cardinals.